Let's break it down. Elon Musk has just tweeted that the EU should be abolished and sovereignty returned to individual countries so that governments can better represent their people. That is not a small opinion. That is a billionaire tech owner saying, in plain language, that the European Union should basically stop existing. I'm Imran, a Middle East-based analyst who follows global politics and power. Let's talk about what this really means. First, a quick reset. What is the EU? The European Union is a political and economic bloc of 27 countries. It has a single market where goods, services, and people can move freely, common rules on things like food safety, data privacy, and competition, and for many members, a shared currency, the euro. It was built step by step after World War II with one big idea. If countries are deeply connected economically and politically, it becomes much harder for them to go to war with each other again. Of course, it's not perfect. People criticize the EU for being bureaucratic, slow, and sometimes out of touch with ordinary voters. But abolishing it is a completely different level from saying, let's reform it. So why would Elon Musk say something this extreme? Remember who Musk is in this story. He owns X, the platform where he posted this. He also runs Tesla, SpaceX, and other companies that are heavily affected by European regulations. The EU has some of the toughest rules in the world on data privacy, content moderation, competition and monopoly power, and environmental standards, including rules that affect car makers like Tesla. European regulators have repeatedly pressed Musk about hate speech and disinformation on X. They've warned his company about possible fines. They have opened probes into whether the platform follows the EU's digital services rules. So, when Musk tweets the EU should be abolished, it's not coming from a neutral academic position. It is coming from a businessman who is very angry with a regulator that has real power over him. Now, let's look at the argument he gives, that sovereignty should be returned to individual countries so governments can better represent their people. There is a real debate here. On one side, critics of the EU say, Brussels makes too many rules that override national parliaments. Voters feel decisions are taken by distant officials they did not directly choose. Smaller countries sometimes feel bullied by larger ones, and migration, trade, and green policies are negotiated at the EU level, even when local people strongly disagree. You can see this frustration in Brexit, in the rise of far-right and nationalist parties, and in constant fights inside the EU over migration quotas and budget contributions. On the other side, defenders of the EU say no single European country, not even France or Germany, is strong enough alone to stand up to giants like the US or China. The single market helps businesses grow and gives citizens the right to live and work across borders. Shared rules protect consumers and workers from being pushed down in a race to the bottom. And facing climate change, digital giants and wars like the one in Ukraine, Europe needs unity, not fragmentation. From this angle, abolishing the EU would not free Europe, it would throw it back into a 20th century style power game where big states dominate small ones. So what would it even mean to abolish the EU? This is where Musk's tweet jumps from political argument into fantasy. To actually end the EU, you would need multiple national governments to agree, probably referendums in many countries, and legal processes to unwind thousands of shared laws, trade deals, financial systems, and cross-border programs built over decades. That is not something that happens because one billionaire sends a spicy post. It would be a long, chaotic process that could shake currencies, markets, and security arrangements. And remember, at the same time as Musk is saying abolish the EU, Russia is still attacking Ukraine, China is growing more assertive, and the US is openly saying it will focus more on its own hemisphere. A broken EU in that context would not make Europe safer. It would make it more vulnerable. From where I sit, the deeper question is this: how much power should one very rich man have to shape political debate in entire continents? When Elon Musk tweets, it is not just one citizen expressing an opinion. He owns the platform, he controls the algorithm, and his words are amplified to millions within seconds. His companies also have real leverage over jobs and investment. So when he says abolish the EU, it doesn't happen, but it does. Energize people who already want to weaken the EU, put more pressure on politicians who fear his influence, and slowly normalize the idea that dismantling a major democratic project is a reasonable option. So let's break it down one last time. The European Union is a flawed but major pillar of global politics and economics. Elon Musk, frustrated with European rules and regulators, has now said it should be abolished and replaced by fully separate nation-states. Behind that tweet is a real debate about sovereignty, democracy, and bureaucracy. But there is also something else. A powerful billionaire trying to bend public opinion in a direction that would reduce the power of the only regulator big enough to challenge him. If you are in Europe, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Do you feel overruled by Brussels and attracted to Musk's message? Or do you see the EU with all its problems as something worth fixing rather than destroying? This is Imran Breaks It Down, and we'll keep breaking it down together.